July 4th, 1946. Biskupia Gorka Hill near Gdansk, Poland. The sun rises over a construction site that looks out of place. Workers are hammering heavy wooden boards. They test thick hemp ropes. The sound of saws and hammers echoes across the entire hillside. By 10 in the morning, the first spectators arrive. By noon, the crowd becomes a massive tide. They come on foot. They arrive on bicycles. They park cars and horse-drawn carts at the base of the hill. Former prisoners of the Stutthof concentration camp move slowly through the dirt. Some are still skeletal, recovering from months of typhus and starvation. Polish families who survived the Nazi occupation stand beside them. They came for one reason: justice. By 4 in the afternoon, the hill is buried under a sea of people. 200,000 spectators. This is the largest public gathering in the history of post-war Poland. They stand shoulder to shoulder. The air is heavy. No one speaks. On the wooden platform, 11 nooses swing in the breeze. 5 of these ropes are for women. Why were the citizens so quiet? They were waiting for the arrival. It finally happened at 5 in the afternoon. Heavy trucks roar up the incline. They carry the condemned guards and capos. Guards lead them onto the scaffold. Their hands are tied behind their backs with thick cord. The silence breaks. The crowd roars. 5 years of occupation, grief, and torture erupt into a single scream. The sound rolls over the hill like a physical wave. 11 figures stand on the edge. 5 are women. 1 stands out, Jenny Wanda Barkman. She is 24 years old. The camera captures her face. Her dark hair is styled. Her makeup is applied with precision. She wears her most expensive dress. Stutthof survivors called her the beautiful specter. Even with a noose around her neck, she keeps the mask in place. She remains composed. She remains elegant. She looks at the crowd as if she is the lead actress in a theater production. The footage shows the trucks backing up. The drivers wait for the signal. In a moment, the vehicles will pull away and 11 bodies will drop. But the execution is about to go wrong. It became a scene of chaos. July 4th, 1946. The gallows motor stalls. The truck carrying the prisoners does not move. Jenny Barkman stands on the wooden platform with a noose tightened around her neck. 200,000 people watch from the fields of Biskupia Gorka. She is still breathing. She is still alive. The crowd begins to murmur. Then the silence breaks. A man pushes through the security line. He wears the thin striped rags of a concentration camp prisoner. He is skeletal. His skin clings to his bones. He's a survivor of Stutthof, barely recovered from years of starvation. He does not hesitate. He climbs onto the back of the truck and stands inches away from the woman who sent his friends to the gas chambers. He gives a single violent shove. The truck moves. Barkman drops. The rope snaps taut, but her neck does not break. This is a short drop execution. There is no sudden snap of the spine. Instead, the weight of the body slowly crushes the windpipe. The camera records the result. Her legs kick in the air. Her styled hair whips across her face. She struggles for air while the massive crowd watches her die in silence. This is the end of the female guards of Stutthof. These women committed acts of extreme cruelty. But the most disturbing detail is not the execution, it is their origin. These were not lifelong soldiers. They were not raised in the party. Who were they before the war? Only 1 year earlier, they were ordinary citizens. They were shop assistants, tramway conductors, and housemaids. In 1944, they volunteered for duty at the camp. They chose to be there. The transformation was rapid. In less than 12 months, they became professional killers. They beat female prisoners to death with wooden clubs. They stood on the selection platforms and pointed children toward the gas chambers. They invented new methods of torture for their own entertainment. They believed they were untouchable. But justice arrived in a public field in Poland. 11 gallows stood in a row. 5 of them were for women. The transition was complete, from ordinary girls to war criminals to corpses swinging in the wind. It is a record of how quickly a person can be consumed by evil. The footage from that day is clear. Youth and beauty did not provide a shield. Polish justice was absolute. This is the timeline of the Stutthof trials and the final minutes of the women who became monsters. September 2nd, 1939. one day after the invasion of Poland began. The gates of Stutthof opened. The location was a calculated choice. It sat near the Vistula River, where the water flows into the Baltic Sea, remote enough to hide mass murder, close enough to the city for logistics. Thick forests and deep marshes surrounded the perimeter. Escape was not an option. Why was the camp built so fast? It was a signal. The Nazis did not want to just occupy Poland, they wanted to erase it. Stutthof was the starting point for that destruction. At first, the trucks brought the elite, Polish intellectuals, teachers, priests, politicians. The Nazis identified anyone capable of leading a rebellion and rounded them up. The strategy was clear. Kill the thinkers first. No leaders, no resistance. The early executions were crude. SS guards marched professors and priests into the nearby woods. The prisoners held shovels. They dug their own pits. Then, the firing squad stepped forward. 110,000 prisoners entered those gates over 6 years. 65,000 never left. Most died from typhus, starvation, or beatings. But as the war progressed, the methods became industrial. 1943. The SS expanded the infrastructure. They built a gas chamber and a crematorium. The gas chamber was small. It could only kill 150 people at a time. It lacked the scale of Auschwitz, but it was functional. Guards dropped Zyklon B pellets through vents in the ceiling. Within 30 minutes, everyone inside was dead. The process was mechanical. Bodies were dragged from the chamber. They were moved directly to the crematorium ovens. The smoke became a permanent feature of the skyline. June 1944. The camp became a hub for the final solution. Thousands of Jewish women and children arrived from the Baltic states. They came in cattle cars from Riga, Kaunas, and Vilnius. No food, no water. For many, Stutthof was the final stop on a journey of exhaustion. Then came the transfers from Auschwitz. In January 1945, the Nazis evacuated the east to stay ahead of the Soviet Red Army. Survivors of the Auschwitz selections arrived at Stutthof. They expected relief. Instead, they found a nightmare of overcrowding. 50,000 prisoners were packed into a space designed for 10,000. The SS lost control of the hygiene. Disease spread. To maintain order, they needed more boots on the ground. Specifically, they needed female guards. The recruitment drive targeted local women from Gdansk. Age range, 18 to 25. The pitch was simple: good pay, better rations than the factories. The job description was vague: supervising prisoners. Did they know the truth? The paperwork didn't mention the beatings or the executions, but the smell of the crematorium reached for miles. Many volunteered anyway. Among the new recruits were 5 women. In a few months, their names would be synonymous with cruelty. Jenny Wanda Barkman, Gerda Steinhoff, Wanda Klaff, Elizabeth Becker, Gerda Steinhardt. The camera captures their faces in later mugshots. They look like ordinary citizens. But in the winter of 1944, they were the law in Stutthof. There was no turning back. May 30th, 1922. Jenny Wanda Barkman is born in Hamburg, Germany. Her early life follows a standard pattern: a middle-class home, a typical German education. There are no early signs of violence, but Barkman is driven by a specific ambition. She is physically striking. She has high cheekbones, dark hair, and a natural elegance. When she walks down the street, people stop to look. Barkman notices this. She wants to be a fashion model. She envisions herself on the runways of Berlin and Paris. She spends her time focused on makeup and clothing. She believes she is destined for a life of luxury and public admiration. But the timing is wrong. By the early 1940s, the German fashion industry is dead. The country is in a state of total mobilization. The government expects young women to work in munitions factories or administrative offices. It is grueling, unglamorous labor. For Barkman, this is unacceptable. She refuses to be ordinary. How does a girl dreaming of runways end up in a death camp? The answer is simple: status. In 1944, the SS begins a massive recruitment drive for female guards. The offer is tempting. The pay is higher than factory wages. The food rations are superior. Most importantly, there is a uniform. It provides immediate authority and social standing. To a 21-year-old woman obsessed with her own image, the position looks like a career move. Barkman volunteers. The SS accepts her on the spot. Her physical appearance is an asset to the organization. The leadership knows that beautiful guards create a specific psychological effect. It disorients the inmates. It makes the subsequent violence feel more unpredictable and more terrifying. Summer, 1944. Barkman arrives at the Stutthof concentration camp. She's assigned to SK3. This is the women's subcamp. It is a place of extreme suffering. The conditions are visible to the naked eye. The prisoners are Jewish women transferred from Auschwitz and Baltic labor camps. They are walking skeletons. Their heads are shaved. Identification numbers are tattooed into their skin. They wear rags covered in filth. In the barracks, they sleep on bare wooden planks. There is no bedding. There is no space. The diet is a death sentence. 1 bowl of watery soup and a single crust of bread per day. Disease moves through the barracks like a predator. Typhus, dysentery, and tuberculosis are everywhere. The footage from such sites shows the result. Every morning, piles of bodies are stacked outside like firewood. At first glance, Barkman is out of place, but in reality, she finds her true calling. She discovers a hidden trait. She enjoys the environment. She does not just do her job, she revels in it. She learns to love the sensation of absolute power. She enjoys the way the prisoners shrink away when she approaches. She likes knowing that one word from her can end a life. Barkman changes her accessories. She no longer carries a handbag. Instead, she carries a heavy riding crop. She walks through the barracks, slamming the whip against her boots. The sound echoes against the wooden walls. The prisoners freeze. No one dares to make eye contact. The aspiring model has found her stage, but there is no applause, only silence and fear. Events accelerated from there. At Stutthof, Barkman is no longer a girl from Hamburg. She is a perpetrator. Jenny Barkman stood in the center of the yard. She pointed at a prisoner. The woman began doing push-ups and squats on the freezing ground. Barkman watched until the victim collapsed from total exhaustion. Then, the beating began. Barkman used her boots and hands to punish the woman for falling. This was a daily routine. Selections for the gas chambers were a formal procedure. Barkman stood beside SS doctors as the women filed past. They inspected bodies like livestock. Barkman decided who remained useful and who was sent to the furnace. To her, it was a clerical task. Survivors described her behavior during these selections. It looked like shopping. Barkman walked down the long lines of prisoners. She pointed casually at women and children. A single gesture meant death. There was no hesitation. There was only a smile. Multiple witnesses testified about this specific detail. Barkman smiled while sentencing hundreds to the gas chambers. The prisoners gave her a name, the Beautiful Spectre. Beautiful because of her physical features. Spectre because she brought the shadow of death, but the violence was often physical. One survivor watched as Barkman attacked sick prisoners with her bare hands. She beat them until the movement stopped. She did not stop until the bodies were still. At first glance, she was just a guard, but in reality, she was a sadist. Barkman used psychological torture as a weapon. She told prisoners they were finally being released. She watched them smile. She let them feel hope. Then she laughed and sent them directly to the gas chamber. It was a game to her. For 9 months, Barkman ruled her section of the Stutthof camp. She acted like a queen. From 1944 until early 1945, her word was law. Then, the front lines shifted. In January 1945, the Soviet Red Army approached. The sound of distant artillery reached the camp gates. The SS began a frantic evacuation. Barkman did not stay to fight. She fled to the city of Dansk and disappeared. The footage from the era shows the chaos of the retreat. Barkman changed her appearance. She cut her hair and obtained false identification papers. She blended into the crowds of refugees. She believed the past was buried. But she was wrong. There was no turning back. January 29, 1922. Gerda Steinhoff was born in Danzig-Langfuhr. Her early life was quiet. She worked as a domestic servant on a rural farm. No criminal record, no signs of violence. In 1939, she moved to a bakery. Later, she became a conductor on the city trams. By 1944, she was a wife and a mother. Everything changed in the autumn of 1944. The Nazi regime issued a call for female camp guards. Stutthof volunteered. On October 1st, 1944, she entered the gates of the Stutthof concentration camp. Her first role was block leader in the SK3 women's sector. Her primary duty was selection. The process was mechanical. Stutthof stood beside SS doctors as thousands of prisoners marched past. She observed their faces and their bodies. If a woman looked thin, she pointed. If a child looked sick, she pointed. Those she identified were moved to a separate line. The destination was the gas chamber. Stutthof performed this task several times every week. Hundreds of people died because of her finger. Promotion came quickly. On October 31st, 1944, the SS promoted her to the rank of Oberaufseherin. She was now a senior overseer in charge of an entire subcamp. She had been on the job for only 30 days. Her superiors noticed her efficiency. They liked her brutality. The trial footage reveals a disturbing detail. In the courtroom, Stutthof did not look like a prisoner facing death. She smiled. She cracked jokes with the other defendants. The camera records her laughing while the evidence of mass murder is read aloud. There was no visible remorse. To Stutthof, the proceedings appeared to be a joke. Elisabeth Becker had a different path. She was born in East Prussia. In 1938, she moved to Danzig. She worked various jobs until the summer of 1944. That was when she accepted a position as a guard at Stutthof. Like Stutthof, she was assigned to the SK3 section. Her job was the same, conducting selections for the gas chambers. How many did she kill? In court, Becker admitted to selecting 30 women for execution. Investigators believed the real number was much higher. At first glance, she appeared less violent than her peers, but in reality, she was a functional part of the killing machine. The court saw a distinction. They noted that Becker had not beaten as many prisoners to death as Stutthof or Barkman. Because of this, the judges recommended a lighter sentence. They suggested 15 years in prison instead of the gallows. They cited her short tenure at the camp as a mitigating factor. The Polish president, Bolesław Bierut, disagreed. He rejected the recommendation for mercy. His reasoning was cold and logical. Becker had stood at the selection line. She had sent women and children to the gas. That fact alone was a capital crime. The law required a life for a life. She would hang. There was one more woman in the dock, Oa Paradis. She remains the most mysterious figure of the group. Very few records of her life exist. No detailed backstory, no childhood anecdotes. The footage shows her standing silently. Unlike Stutthof, she was not laughing. But like the others, her fate was already sealed. The evidence of their actions at Stutthof was documented in the ledgers of the dead. The court delivered its final verdict. There would be no more delays. 10 minutes later, the guards led them back to their cells to await the executioner. Thus ended the trial of the Stutthof guards. Stutthof concentration camp, 1944. Ewa Paradis did not just watch the prisoners, she hunted them. Survivors identified her in court as one of the most vicious guards in the entire system. Why did she do it? The question hung in the courtroom. There was no complex answer. She simply enjoyed the power. Witnesses testified to her specific brand of cruelty. One survivor recalled a sick woman lying on the floor. Paradis did not call a doctor. She grabbed a wooden club and struck the woman repeatedly. The sound of wood hitting bone filled the room until the woman's skull cracked open. Another witness described a different tactic. Paradis would stand before starving prisoners with food. She watched them beg. She watched their desperate faces. Then she laughed, turned around, and walked away. During the trial, her face remained a mask. She showed no remorse, no tears, no regret. Her defense was a single sentence. She was just doing her job and following orders. Wanda Klaff had a similar beginning. Born March 6, 1922, in Danzig. Her father was a railway worker. In 1944, she joined the Stutthof staff and immediate violence followed. The footage would show a young woman, but the reality was a predator. Klaff beat prisoners unconscious for looking at her. She struck them for walking too slowly. One witness described a scene of absolute horror. Klaff spotted a pregnant woman. She began kicking and beating the woman in the stomach. She did not stop until a miscarriage occurred. Even then, as the woman bled on the cold ground, Klaff continued the assault. Klaff did not just follow orders, she volunteered for extra duty. She wanted to be the one to select who went to the gas chambers. Like Jenny Wanda Barkman, Klaff treated mass murder as a game. She smiled during the selections. She cracked jokes while people marched to their deaths. To her, the camp was entertainment. 5 women, less than 1 year of service. From mid-1944 to January 1945, they oversaw the deaths of thousands. They used selections, starvation, and systematic abuse to break the human spirit. Conditions in Stutthof were catastrophic. The camp was built for 10,000 people. By late 1944, the population surged to over 50,000. The camera records the layout: wooden bunks with no bedding. Prisoners were packed so tightly they could not lie down. They slept sitting up or leaning against one another. 1 meal a day was the standard: a bowl of watery soup and a single slice of bread. Starvation was not a side effect, it was the policy. Then came the typhus. In December 1944, the epidemic exploded. By January, the death toll reached 250 people every single day. The crematorium reached its limit. The machinery failed. The SS found a solution. They built open-air pyres. They stacked human corpses with logs like cordwood and doused them in fuel oil. The smell of burning flesh became a permanent part of the atmosphere. But the guards did not slow down. They maintained order through pure terror. They forced prisoners to stand for hours in freezing temperatures for roll call. They snatched food away from the weak. Every day they walked the lines, pulling out the sickest individuals for the gas chambers. They were the daily face of the Nazi regime. They decided, moment to moment, who lived and who died. The end came in January 1945. Soviet forces were closing in. The SS began the evacuation. 50,000 prisoners were forced out into the snow. This was the death march. The female guards walked the flanks of the column. Anyone who stumbled was shot. Anyone who slowed down was executed in a ditch. Thousands died in the drifts. Others were driven into the freezing Baltic Sea and drowned. The guards tried to vanish. They scattered into the ruins of Germany, hoping the chaos would hide their crimes. They were wrong. Poland wanted justice. On May 9, 1945, Soviet and Polish forces entered Stutthof. The liberation had begun. Inside the gates, they found a nightmare. The era of the female guards was over. The trials were next. May 1945. The Red Army entered the Stutthof concentration camp. They found hundreds of prisoners who had managed to hide during the chaotic final evacuation. But they found more than survivors. The soldiers uncovered mountains of physical evidence. They seized crates of documents, thousands of photographs, and recorded testimony from those still alive. The Polish government moved immediately. They launched a massive operation to prosecute every member of the camp personnel. They targeted guards, administrators, and every civilian who had worked within the barbed wire. Jenny Barkman was the first to fall. Polish police spotted her at a train station in Gdansk in May 1945. She was carrying false identity papers and preparing to flee. It didn't work. Former prisoners had already provided detailed descriptions of her face. The woman they called the Beautiful Spectre was in handcuffs. The arrests continued. Gerda Steinhoff was captured around the same time. Soon after, police located Elizabeth Becker, Ebwa Paradis, and Wanda Klaff. They were thrown into prison cells. Polish prosecutors began months of intense interrogations. They were building a case that would leave no room for escape. April 25, 1946. The first Stutthof trial opened in the city of Gdansk. 13 defendants sat in the dock. The group included the 5 female guards and SS Obersturmführer Johann Pauls, the commander of the guards. Next to them sat 1 other male SS officer and 6 Polish kapos. These were prisoners who had collaborated with the Nazis to supervise and brutalize their own people. The trial lasted 36 days. The prosecutor laid out the evidence piece by piece. One survivor after another took the stand. They didn't just speak, they pointed their fingers directly at the defendants. They described specific atrocities in graphic detail. They spoke of savage beatings, the selection process for the gas chambers, and cold-blooded murders. The testimony was overwhelming. The defendants tried to fight back with various excuses. Some claimed they were simply following orders from Berlin. Others insisted they had never hurt a single soul. They accused the survivors of lying under oath. Their behavior in court was recorded. Gerda Steinhoff smiled and joked with the guards. The camera shows her acting as if the trial were a form of entertainment. Jenny Barkman remained still. She kept her composure and her elegant bearing. She looked confident. She acted as if an acquittal were a certainty. She was wrong. May 31st, 1946. The court delivered the final verdicts. All 13 defendants were found guilty of crimes against humanity. 12 of them, including all 5 women, were sentenced to death by hanging. Only 1 received a prison sentence. The court's findings were clear. These women had participated in systematic torture and genocide. They had personally selected who lived and who died in the gas chambers. They had beaten prisoners until they stopped breathing. They were active components of a machine designed to exterminate human beings. The excuse of following orders was officially rejected. The court held that participating in genocide was a choice. There was no way back. The execution was set. They had choices. They could have requested a transfer. They could have taken administrative duties far from the gas chambers. Instead, they stayed. They participated. Now, the bill for those actions had arrived. The court gave the condemned 30 days to appeal. Jenny Barkman remained calm. Even after the judge read the death sentence, her confidence did not break. She acted as if a hidden exit still existed. When asked if she understood the verdict, she spoke a single sentence that froze the courtroom. "Life is a pleasure, and pleasures are usually short." The remark was cold. It was almost a joke. To Barkman, the trial appeared to be just another form of entertainment. She did not grasp the reality of the noose, or perhaps she understood it too well. In the SK3 ward, she had spent months playing God. A casual gesture from her meant life or death for others. Now, her own death seemed like an abstract concept. The footage from the cell area shows a strange routine. Between the sentence and the execution, Barkman focused on her reflection. She styled her hair. She applied makeup. She maintained her image as the beautiful specter until the final hour. Elizabeth Becker reacted differently. She was paralyzed by terror. She did not fix her hair. She wrote letters. She sent multiple pleas for mercy to Polish President Bolesław Bierut. The archival documents show her handwriting changing. It became shaky and desperate as the date approached. She used a specific defense. She claimed she was only at Stutthof for 4 months, from August to December 1944. She argued she was not as cruel as the others. She was 27 years old. She begged for her life. Becker even reminded the president that the court suggested 15 years of prison instead of death. Her crime was a matter of numbers. She admitted to participating in selections, but only for 30 women. She spoke as if there was a mathematical threshold for murder. In her mind, sending 30 people to the gas chambers was forgivable because others had sent thousands. The president did not agree. Gerda Steinhoff showed neither fear nor regret. In the holding cells, the sound of her laughter was constant. She chatted and joked with the other condemned prisoners. They behaved like roommates in a dormitory rather than war criminals facing the gallows. The trial records show a pattern. During testimony, Steinhoff smiled. When survivors described how she sent hundreds of women and children to their deaths, she looked bored. Her defense was a single sentence. She was just doing her job. She had orders and she followed them. Events accelerated. The appeals were denied. The date was set for July 4th, 1946. There was no turning back. Thus ended the period of waiting.